That rocky coast, standing in the cold wind of the North Atlantic, where for thousands of years people have only seen beauty, but very few people have understood. This place may hide one of the strangest mysteries of our world, and in today's video, I'm going to show you something you've never heard of before. And if you like to know such real mysteries and unknown truths, then subscribe to the channel now and stay by your side, because the end of this story may be much more terrifying than you think. There is a place on the coast of Northern Ireland where thousands of perfect hexagonal stone pillars have erupted from the ground. From a distance, it seems as if some unknown civilization designed and built them. But science tells us they were formed about 60 million years ago when hot lava cooled and formed these strange geometric structures. But the problem is, this explanation doesn't explain everything, because there are some events that have happened here that are not written in any textbook. A few months ago, a simple drone operator whose job was just to capture beautiful videos was flying a drone over this coast. His intention was to make a simple sunset video, but his camera captured something that caught the attention of scientists within hours. The video shows a large piece of rock on the mountain slowly moving, not breaking, not moving, but rather as if some invisible force was pushing it open from the inside, just like a door. And this whole thing happened in just a few seconds, and then the rock returned to its previous position so perfectly that there was no trace left. At first, everyone thought it was a camera glitch or a play of light and shadow, but after analyzing the video repeatedly, it turned out that it was not an illusion. The stone really moved, and that is exactly why a research team arrived at the scene the next day. For them, who have been working on the geology of the area for years, this was an impossible event, because all the surveys conducted over the years said that this entire area is made of solid rock. There should be no hollow spaces here. They decided to use modern scanning technology to examine the internal structure, and when the first scan was carried out, what was seen was completely beyond their expectations. A hollow space was detected inside the stone, like a secret room. But the matter did not end there, because there was something else inside that room, something that scientists could not believe at first. The scan data shows that there are several tall figures standing there, perfectly straight, at equal distances from each other, as if they were placed there for a purpose. And the strangest thing is that these figures are not merged with the stone, but are being detected as separate entities, as if they are stuck in that place. Now the question becomes even bigger. How did these things get there? Because if they were made with the stone, then they would not be detected as separate objects, and if they were placed there later, then there should be an entrance inside that solid rock. But the scan did not find anything, as if this room and the things inside it had always been there. And this is where the real mystery begins. Because when scientists began to analyze it in more detail, they realized that this event was not just a strange geological formation, but something that could question our idea of the history of the Earth. And from this moment, the story begins to take a turn in such a direction where each new piece of information becomes more terrifying than the previous one. But the most surprising thing came a few days later, when the same spot was scanned again. And what was seen stunned the entire team, because compared to the previous data, it was clear that everything was not the same. Something had changed. And that change proved that this story was not just about the past, it was still happening. After the first scan, the entire research team realized that they were standing in front of something that would not be easy to explain, but they still tried to convince themselves. Maybe it was a natural formation, maybe an unusual mineral arrangement. But their idea didn't last long, because even before the second day of scanning began, a strange unease had developed within the team, as if no one could say exactly why they were feeling uneasy, but everyone was feeling it. The morning weather was heavy, the sky was cloudy, the sea waves seemed a little more restless than usual, and it was in this environment that they set up the equipment again, stood at the same point the day before, and started scanning. Everyone was looking at the screen, because they wanted to make sure that the data from the day before was wrong. But within a few seconds, they realized it was not wrong. The room was still there, but the figures inside were not the same as before. One of the researchers on the team thought at first that the data was reading incorrectly. He recalibrated, checked with another instrument, but the result was the same. One of the figures was no longer there. It was 7 o'clock. Now it was 6. No one made a sound because no one knew what to say. They all looked at each other as if someone would give an explanation. But there was no explanation, because the biggest question was, if something moved, where did it go? There are no paths, no cracks, no tunnels inside the stone. So how did it disappear? What's even more strange is that the remaining 6 figures are not standing in the same place. They have changed their position very slightly, so slightly that it is not noticeable at first glance. But when compared with the previous data, it is clear that they are not stationary at all. At this moment, for the first time, a fear begins to act in the group, because this is no longer a static object. It is something that is changing, and they are seeing that change with their own eyes. They decide to bring more advanced equipment, because at this stage, just a simple scan is not enough. They need to know what these figures are actually made of, whether there is anything inside them, and most importantly, are they somehow active? The next day, another expert arrived with new equipment, whose job was to analyze underground structures. He had worked in many complex situations, but within a few minutes of starting this scan, his behavior changed. His hands began to shake. He kept looking at the screen and then looking away again, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The new scan data showed that these structures were not solid, but hollow. Their outer part was like a hard shell, but inside there was empty space, more like a shell. And this information made the whole thing even more complicated, because it meant that they were not part of a rock, but something separate. Even more terrifying came when they decided to measure the temperature, because usually the temperature inside the rock is close to the outside environment. But when a thermal scan is performed, everyone fell silent when they saw the numbers that appeared on the screen. The structures were radiating heat, and not just heat, heat that was almost close to human body temperature. There is no way that such a stable temperature can exist inside a cold rock where the outside temperature is very low. According to the laws of physics, it should cool down within a few hours, but here it does not. But the temperature is constant, sometimes fluctuating slightly, as if something inside is controlling it on its own. At this point, none of the team could accept this as normal anymore, because now they were faced with 3 unknowns. First, the structures were moving. Second, they were hollow. And third, they were generating heat. And the combination of these 3 meant this was no ordinary natural formation. But that was not all, because they ran another experiment, measuring vibrations. And the results of that experiment took the whole situation to a whole new level. The sensors can detect very subtle vibrations, usually caused by ground movement or water flow. But what was detected here was regular, rhythmic, and incredibly precise. Every few seconds, a pulse, in the same rhythm, at the same interval, as if a heartbeat. At this moment, no one in the group was trying to hide their fear anymore, because they understood whatever was inside that rock was not just any object, perhaps something alive. And if that was true, then the most terrible question had yet to come to the fore. What had already disappeared? Where was it now? And what remained? Are they following the same path? None of them were functioning normally anymore, because after hearing that rhythmic pulse, the entire environment seemed to have changed, and it wasn't just the data from the instrument. Some members of the team claimed to be able to feel the very subtle vibrations of the ground beneath their feet, as if something was slowly responding from deep within the rock, and this feeling was becoming more and more obvious as time went on. But they knew now was not the time to back down, because they were standing in front of information that could change the history of the world. They began to analyze all the previous scans together, every location, every data point, every change, and when they arranged it all into a timeline, a pattern became clear. The organs were not moving randomly, but moving in a specific direction, slowly, controlled, as if they had a specific destination. And what was that destination? It was the same place where the drone had first seen the rock move. This information silenced the entire team because it meant so much. They weren't just moving, they were moving toward a specific door that had already opened once, and if it opened again, what would happen? To confirm their suspicions, they continued to observe for several more days, with new scans every 24 hours, and each time the same thing was seen. The organs were moving a little further than before. The distance wasn't very great, but continuous, not stopping, not changing direction, as if following some invisible guide. At this point, a division arose within the team, with some researchers thinking it should be made public, because it was scientifically unprecedented, while others were saying that it might cause panic, because they themselves weren't sure exactly what they were working on. And it was in this conflict that the authorities above them caught sight of the project. Shortly after, instructions were given. All data had to be submitted centrally. No information could be released outside, contact with the media was prohibited, and research activities would be limited. The official explanation was given. It was an unusual but natural geological formation. But those working inside knew this explanation was not even close to reality. Meanwhile, the most important event occurred. During a live observation, the sensors suddenly became unusually active. The speed of the vibrations increased slightly, the temperature rose by 1 or 2 degrees, and at that moment, the drone operator, who had returned to the scene, captured something on his camera that took the whole incident to a new level. That part of the rock started moving again. Not slowly this time, faster, as if the pressure was building from within. The camera frame shook, the wind picked up, and for a few seconds the crack reappeared, a dark, deep, light-swallowing void. And at that very moment the sensor showed a figure approaching the door. Then everything stopped. The stone closed again. The pulse was normal. The temperature dropped. But this time there was a difference. The new scan showed the position of the figures had changed much more than before, and the most terrifying thing was they were no longer as far apart as before, but rather gathered very close to the door, as if preparing for the next moment. At this moment, the whole team realized this was no longer a slow process. It was accelerating, and something might happen again very soon. But the question now was not just what, the question was when. Because if this speed continued to increase in the same way, then the next time the door opened, maybe it wouldn't be for a few seconds. And if it's open, then how long will it take for what's inside to come out? And this is where the whole story gets most uncomfortable, because scientists are no longer just observers. They are witnesses to a possible event that is beyond their control, and they've already seen the beginning of it. But the end? That hasn't been written yet, and maybe, very soon, we'll all see it. None of them saw it as just research anymore, because every observation over the past few days had made one thing very clear to them. Whatever was inside that rock was not static. It was waiting, and the end of that waiting might be near. But just then the final order came from above. The project had to be stopped immediately, all equipment removed, and the site declared completely off-limits. The official reason was coastal erosion and safety risks, but those who knew the inside information understood. This was not a simple safety issue. This was something that could spiral out of control if exposed. Over the next 48 hours, the entire area was cordoned off with heavy barriers, warning signs, and security patrols. Everything arranged to keep anyone out. But still, a few team members quietly left their own copies, scan data, temperature records, vibration graphs, everything, because they knew this information might one day become important. On the last night before everything was wrapped up, a very limited team ran a final scan, just to make sure, if anything had changed. And that final scan took the whole story to a completely different place, because this time there was no doubt. The organs were now standing right in front of the door. The distance was almost zero, and their temperature was higher than before, their pulse faster than before, as if they were preparing for something. At that moment, one of the teams said slowly, "If this is true, then we are too late." Because the calculation is simple. Things that had not moved for billions of years have now arrived at the door in a few days, and this means that this process has suddenly started, for some unknown reason, and if it has started, then why would it stop? Then came the question that shook the entire team from the inside, which none of them wanted to say out loud, but everyone was thinking in their hearts. The first organ that disappeared. Where is it now? Because it couldn't walk through the rocks, it didn't use any visible path, yet it's no longer there, and if it really did come out, then is it still somewhere on this coast, or is it gone far away? Maybe in some unknown cave under the sea, maybe on the other side of the mountain, or is it somewhere where people go every day but don't notice anything? No answers were found to these questions, because shortly after that, the whole thing was completely suppressed. No official reports were published, many of the researchers went silent, some gave up their work, and the little information that came out seemed scattered, incomplete, and very unreliable. But one thing is certain. According to the last scan, the remaining figures were still there, still moving, still vibrating, and they were standing right in front of the door, as if waiting for the next moment. Now the question is for you. Do you think that door has opened again? If it is open, then are they all out? Or is there still someone standing inside, waiting? And if the most terrifying possibility is true, then maybe we have already walked past one of them, without realizing anything. What do you think? Is this phenomenon really an unknown natural process, or something we don't understand yet? Write your opinion in the comments. I read every comment. And if you want to know real mysteries, unknown truths, and hidden events that are usually not told anywhere, then subscribe to the channel now and stay tuned, because more such stories are coming up, which may change our perception of reality.